A career-defining moment in Abu Dhabi, millions on the line, and all of a sudden, Alex Eala's phone wouldn't stop ringing from sponsors, not friends, who were prepared to permanently alter her life. Nobody anticipated the explosion that ensued. One performance, one game, and everything changed in an instant. This is the tale of how a Filipino tennis player transformed a single event into a multi-million-dollar sensation, and why the largest companies in Alex Eala wasn't meant to be here, at least not yet. At barely 20 years old, the world is currently vying for her signature. Most tennis players can only imagine the road that the Filipino tennis superstar has already carved out. Grand Slam Junior champion, the dignity of a whole country rests on the shoulders of the first Filipino to win a WTA singles title ever when she first took the court, but the professional circuit? That's a whole other animal. It's where promise meets pressure, where potential meets reality, and where careers are either discreetly catapulted into stardom or fade into the background. Eala has been the next great thing in Philippine tennis for years. The one who would ultimately succeed on the international scene. However, futures don't cover expenses or quiet skeptics. And futures most definitely don't get the kind of sponsorship money that can turn an athlete from Abu Dhabi was significant because it turned a rival into a brand. The WTA 500 tournament in the United Arab Emirates wasn't merely another occasion in the calendar. For Eala, it was an opportunity to validate her and show that she belonged. She had participated in more prestigious competitions, a stage bright enough for everyone to see her among the top. Previously encountered more difficult opponents and greater stakes, but there was something about Abu Dhabi that felt different. Perhaps it was the preparation, the timing, or just the time when an athlete's readiness coincided. Eala arrived in Abu Dhabi with more than just a racket bag. She brought the aspirations of over 110 million Filipinos. In a nation where tennis had long been marginalized, she carried the burden of being a trailblazer. By boxing and basketball, she bore the expectations of sponsors who had put money into her potential but were still waiting, seeking outcomes that validated their beliefs. She might have been crushed by the pressure. Seeking many young players, it happens, but this is what makes great players different from decent ones. Exceptional players flourish in the spotlight. They embrace the opportunity and don't back down. As the competition got underway, it became evident that Alex Eala wasn't just prepared for Abu Dhabi, she was going to win it. Tennis insiders were keeping an eye on her in the days preceding her debut. Media who had tracked her journey from the Rafael Nadal, instructors who had schooled her agents who recognized that a single breakthrough performance could lead from the academy to the professional tour alter everything. The murmurs were circumspect but optimistic. If she plays her part and maintains her composure, she was able to create commotion here, but no one could have guessed how loud it would get. Eala's game had changed dramatically. Her forehand, which has always been a weapon, has become even faster and more accurate over the past year. Her court mobility has also improved, enabling her to retrieve balls that would have been victories over her earlier self. But above all, the teenage player who occasionally let her feelings to control her performance had developed her mental game. Had been replaced by a strategic, laser-focused player who realized that the best tennis is as much a mental struggle as a physical one. When she entered the Abu Dhabi practice courts, something connected as she worked through her pre-match preparations and struck with her team. The circumstances felt ideal. Everything came together for the first time in months, if not years, and the preparation felt finished. This was not just another competition. Alex Eala has been preparing for this moment her whole life. And whether she realized it at the time or not, the world was going to pay attention in ways that would fundamentally alter everything. Could she, however, bear what lay ahead? The tone was established from the opening game. ELO entered the court with the kind of subdued assurance that unnerves rivals. No drama, no needless passion, simply intense concentration. Her opponent, a seasoned WTA veteran who was ranked in the top 50, had the advantage of experience. She had previously participated in major competitions. She had withstood storms from young upstarts attempting to make themselves name. On paper, the veteran should have won easily. On paper, this doesn't account for excellence. In the making, Eala played with a freedom that astounded everyone in attendance from the very first game. Her serve, her ground strokes, which were already powerful but usually dependable, suddenly had more bite. Were consistently falling within inches of the lines in a way that looked quite impossible. What about her movement? It was like witnessing someone who has researched every angle and possible picture and had prepared a response for every of them. The veteran tried everything, using a hard topspin to force Eala behind and a slice to disturb her rhythm. The baseline, drop shots to test her court coverage, but none of them worked. Each tactic was countered by another. As the duel went on, you could see the realization dawn on her opponent's face that every weapon had been neutralized. This wasn't the young prospect still figuring things out or the player she had scouted. Rather, this was someone working on a whole different level. Eala prevailed 6-3 in the opening set, which was strong but not overwhelming enough to make a statement without revealing every card she had. The second set was a masterclass, 6-1, clinical, brutal, and exquisite. When Eala hit the game-winning goal, the crowd exploded when a cross-court forehand painted the line so precisely that it left a mark on the surface. More significantly though, phones became available, social media took off, and videos of her greatest photos began to viral, and marketing executives began paying careful attention in boardrooms around Asia and beyond. However, a tournament does not create a career, and a match does not create a tournament. Eala's opponent in the second round was even more resilient, a top 30 player renowned for her mental tenacity and consistency. The type of player who perseveres. You were put to the test by someone who requires you to earn every point and never gives you anything for free. The euphoria from a significant first-round victory fades at this point, and reality sets in for the majority of young players. Sets in. Eala won handily. The match lasted 3 sets and about 2.5 hours of intense, excellent tennis. There were times when it appeared that the veteran's experience may win. In other games, Eala's where uncertainty threatened to take root and frustration seeped in, youth was evident. However, each and every time, she came up with a solution. A massive serve to prevent breakpoint, a flawless approach shot to gain momentum, a defensive lob that, in a single stroke, transformed defense into offense. When she finished the final, something changed when he collapsed to the court, exhausted and relieved. This was no longer merely a strong run. This was a declaration made by Alex Eala to the tennis community that she had arrived and would not be leaving any place. Ella's talent continued to grow as the competition went on. Every match presented fresh difficulties, every opponent used a different weapon, but Eala always managed to overcome them. Her forehand was destroying opponents. By the time she advanced to the semifinals, her stroke selection shone maturity beyond her years, and her court positioning was flawless. The tennis world had taken note. Former champions were tweeting, and commentators were running out of superlatives. Their respect, and most significantly, her name was becoming popular worldwide as well as in the Philippines. In Manila, the semi-finals match was televised during prime time. Schools and offices were suspended. On one of the largest tennis tournaments, entire villages gathered around TVs to watch their champion participate. Stages, and Eala did not let us down. She performed with the courage of youth and the poise of an experienced performer. An unstoppable combination. When she finished the game, guaranteeing her place in the finals, the Philippines erupted in pride, but the festivities were only getting started since what came next would transcend tennis completely. The final was set for Sunday afternoon, and everyone on the planet was watching. However, Alex Eala's life had already changed irrevocably by Monday morning. Her performance in Abu Dhabi had been thrilling. Whether she won or lost the final, she had already surpassed all expectations. She had defeated higher-ranked opponents. She had demonstrated age-defying maturity and skill. She had given the Philippine tennis community its most important occasion in decades. However, what transpired in the 48 hours following the tournament's conclusion beyond everyone's expectations. It began on social media, and within hours of her semi-final triumph, Eala gained over 200,000 new Instagram followers, and her highlight films were disseminated on other sites, gaining millions of views. International tennis players were posting about her, as were Filipino celebrities, recognizing her performance. At the same time, the hashtag Alex Eala was trending throughout several nations. However, social media buzz is one thing. What followed was quite another. Eala's management team began getting calls. These were serious discussions rather than the typical questions about appearance costs or exhibition matches. From well-known companies, worldwide beverage companies, sportswear companies, and tech firms searching for Asian Philippine companies and Pacific diplomats see a chance to support national pride. Not only was the interest noteworthy, but it was also regrettable and unheard of for a Filipino tennis player. It turned out to be a perfect storm of talent, time, and cultural moment, according to a sports marketing expert. Eala was more than just a talented athlete competing well, she stood for something greater. She was a young, eloquent, skilled athlete who connected with a wide range of audiences. Tennis aficionados, obviously, but also to young women looking for role models, to the larger Filipino diaspora, to companies attempting to break through the Southeast Asian market. In order to manage the surge in sponsor interest, her team had to schedule extra meetings. Companies who had never given it any thought were now pushing for quick partnerships from brands that had previously showed only moderate interest. Suddenly, tennis sponsorship was looking at possibilities. The volume and immediacy of the inquiries was astounding. The reaction was considerably stronger in the Philippines, where news organizations published feature articles, morning programs asked for interviews, congratulations were tweeted by legislators, and the Philippine Sports Commission pledged more money for tennis development initiatives. Eala had evolved from an athlete to a national icon. Her current sponsors, the companies that had helped her along the way, were similarly ecstatic. Saw enormous returns on their investment all of a sudden. Their relationship with Eala translated into a surge in social media mentions, into favorable brand sentiment across demographics. Within 72 hours, one sponsor reported a 35% boost in interaction of her performance in Abu Dhabi, but maybe most importantly, young Filipino girls began using tennis rackets, enrolling in classes and inquiring about training programs with their parents. The Eala impact was generating a grassroots movement, motivating the following generation in ways that went beyond personal success. Eala herself managed the unexpected attention with amazing poise. In interviews conducted after the competition, she remained modest, giving credit to her family, her staff, and the encouragement of Filipino supporters. She discussed the duty she felt like she was representing her nation. She accepted the pressure but used it as inspiration, rather than hardship, but the reality was more nuanced behind the scenes. Her team had to make tough choices, which sponsors should be given priority, how to strike a balance between training obligations and business prospects, whether to aggressively seize the opportunity or adopt a more cautious strategy to maintain long-term value. Six-figure endorsement deals from Philippine businesses and seven-figure proposals from foreign companies were among the significant offers. Businesses, appearance fees that often outweighed her tournament earnings, and the financial shift was occurring in real time, and each choice had